What's this? Fighting? In this show? What? Hey guys, MasakoX here, and we're back with the latest installment of our really thrilling thing that Haverock and I have been coming up with, Build a Baddie. Over the last year, we've been exploring many different elements concerning Dragon Ball, what makes it what it is, and see whether we can actually replicate it based on what we've already seen and what we would like to see. Something that could be called upon so we can make a brand new villain, a set of minions, a world for them to conquer, or try to conquer, as well as a little MacGuffin or some kind of thing that they're striving to get. These elements come from the early days of Dragon Ball Z, so we can keep the spirit of the show alive and make sure that it's a genuine product, and it doesn't feel like something that really should not belong in that anime. Like how the Goku Black arc in places and Zamasu felt like, this isn't really Dragon Ball, but alright. One thing I will say is that the Tournament of Power may have dragged a little bit, but when it came to coming up with different and exciting and varied characters, they did a really good job. They had a monumental task of making 80 characters, including Universe 7 and 6 that we knew, that had something different and compelling, and for the most part, they were pretty impressive. Even the idea of Prum, who was basically just a reflector or like some kind of sniper accessory, was pretty cool. Even though he didn't look cool. Clayface had more going for him than Prum. It allowed every single fighter that we already knew to think outside the box instead of just simply punching people really, really hard. I'm looking at you, Goku. But back to our Build a Baddie series. Over the last few episodes, we've come up with an idea for a big bad guy, as well as his minions, as well as some kind of plot. For example, in this case, Lord Zaidan is trying to conquer Universe 6's Sadala, trying to find a new energy source and making sure that nobody else gets it. No mortal should have this power, and he feels like it's his righteous duty to rid the universe of it. His crew are charged to make sure that that plan goes off without a hitch. And I must say that at True Maker Gamer came up with some fantastic designs for the minions and Lord Zaidan. These are just amazing. So we already know who's going to be fighting our heroes, but the next question is, how are they going to fight them? We've come so far developing a world, a plot, characters. We can't stumble at the last minute and then go like, they shoot beams at each other and punch. Alright, checks out. No. We need to come up with some innovative styles that don't just rely on beam attacks, because that is a very common trap for anyone coming up with a brand new character. My OC has like the triple Kamehameha. It's 3 times stronger than Goku's, so he can win any battle. He doesn't. Yeah. Just relying on that would be a huge disservice for all the work that Haverock and I have been putting into this whole shebang. We need to do something a little bit more nuanced, and there's so much to play with because Dragon Ball is all about martial arts and fighting styles. What sort of things can we incorporate with their own original wacky powers that we've established already? Something that can be a nice little hybrid, something that we're familiar with and something that we're not. You can find a link to the playlist of the Build a Baddie series in the description, by the way. So what better way to begin proceedings than actually looking to the main captain of the minions himself, a guy who is in charge and all of their names have been derived from construction, ironically, are out on a wave of destruction. Hey, it's a standard Toriyama subversion tactic and I'm gonna roll with it. We are starting with Concruit, the seasoned warrior and the leader of Lord Zaidan's construction posse. Which makes sense why he's the leader, because he's been around the block. Concrete is the strongest personality out of all of them, taking great pride in not only the effectiveness of the fighting style that he conveys, but also how good he looks whilst doing it. It's all very well and good that he's stronger and more competitive than his opponent, but if he doesn't look good whilst doing it without doing some kind of flourish, then how on earth is he going to be able to intimidate people? Like, you gotta see, whoa, he's really good and he looks so cool doing it. You gotta have respect as well as fear for Lord Concrete. And also, it means that if he looks really intimidating, then a lot of people will never dare to challenge him at all, so he wouldn't have to actually even use his powers. Win-win. True Maker Gamer drew Concrete with a sword and shield, and we really like that idea. I think we can easily roll with that, because there aren't that many people in Dragon Ball that use a sword and a shield. We wanted to play around with that idea and see if we can make it work, like say, fusing the powers of Captain America with the shield and Trunks with his sword, because that boy does love his swords. But we can't just have a typical shield. We've got to take a constructive slant on it. This shield is part of his body and can regrow at will. You destroy one shield? Oh, whoop-de-doo, you did. Oh no, he's just grown another one. Perfect for a projectile or any kind of diversionary tactic. When it comes to the actual fighting style, when he has to get his hands dirty, we're going to rely on some kind of kenjutsu as well as traditional swordsmanship. What I'm trying to get at is that this means less of the Star Wars acrobatic stuff and more of just holding the line, standing their ground, so being an immovable force. In general, most of the people in Lord Zaidan's charge are very solid individuals. Makes sense really, because most of their names are derived from construction materials which are meant to be resilient and solid. So it becomes quite clear that good old-fashioned ki attacks aren't really going to do much against Conqueror and his crew, so the Saiyan part of the posse are going to have to think outside the box and come up with some other ways to actually best them. So, you know, good old-fashioned martial arts and agility. This could be our Goku and Vegeta's alley with some CQC. Hey, can you imagine if we brought back future Trunks or even present Trunks and he could rely on his sword? We had some sword-on-sword play with Trunks and Conqueror? That would be really cool! We could have a medieval spectacle, with ki being an accessory instead of the only thing that we see time and time again. It's basically a very glorified sword fight in space. Granted, I know that in the world of Dragon Ball right now, swords have become really irrelevant, but the swords that we would see at play wouldn't be a typical sword that you would find in a blacksmith. Most of these materials would be made of stronger stuff, naturally. When he is separated from his sword though, Concrete can fight back with a mixture of Taekwondo and Aikido, just going to show that he isn't just a staunch knight that can only just throw a sword and shield and yeah, multifaceted. Essentially, Concrete would be seen as the ultimate person in the entire crew, the most accomplished, someone who would be immensely irritated by the likes of Breek, the young and spunky one, who would be constantly trying getting in his way and, yeah, big irritation. Speaking of Breek, he'd be using every single tactic in the book, trying to impress his commander to show that he can do it too, you know, because he's young and full of beans. So in a way, it would mean that Breek would have some kind of street fighting style, but it's not something that would get on with Concrete. It would annoy him immensely. Again, as we stated in the last video, Breek trying to do this and trying to impress everyone would result in him getting hurt more than he actually doles out hurt. So it's kind of like Pichu in Smash Bros. Melee. This would end up in the story with Concrete killing Breek, getting him out of the way once and for all. And that would greatly disturb the really imposing Zement, the big tough one in the group. Zement, as you can tell from this picture, he is the big bulking one. You would think that he'd be really slow, but I think we're going to subvert convention here. It'd be really impressive to see him having actual judo styles incorporated into his fighting style. So it would mean that he would have some kind of agility which would really catch people off guard. He may be huge, but he's faster than you think. Not really super fast, because that would just be game-breaking. Let's just say he'd be of average speed, but when you look at him, you just think, oh, he's going to be really slow, and you realize that he's pretty much almost the same speed as an average person, or an average fighter in Dragon Ball. You think, oh god. Zement could always just go for the tactic of just saying, purely Saiyan, towards Goku and Vegeta, and I think that would be really dramatic. And yes, I know that Kale already did that in Super, but hey, it's still funny. Bat someone around like a fly swatter. So I can imagine just Goku being grabbed by Zement and just being pounded into the ground. So Goku's just going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Zement also seems like the type of guy, once he can actually get the grip on someone, will try and squeeze the life force out of someone. He might even, once he's become really agitated, like when Breek is dispatched, would resort to MMA style tactics, so more bare knuckle stuff. But I think that would be really hard to achieve, because most of the time Zement is, ironically, mild-natured. In contrast towards the big bulking Zement, we then have Parjet. Even though she can dole out powerful punches, her main trait is that she is all about acrobatics and speed, all of the stuff that Concrete doesn't do. All of this, when done right, can provide a really devastating opponent, so can be rather powerful, can also be rather fast. Not as powerful as Zement or Concrete, mind you, but when you combine speed and power, so an above average punch going at 17,000 miles an hour, the escape velocity for Earth, it's gonna be devastating. That's why whenever I build a character in, say, like D&D, for example, I always rely on speed. Her overall fighting style would be based around capoeira, so she would basically just be dancing around her opponents, dealing out punches every now and again, and they wouldn't be able to hit her. She'd be quickly jabbing in, confusing and irritating her opponents to the point where they make really bad mistakes, and then she can go in for the kill. We also think that based on Truemaker Gamer's design, and the fact that she has crystals all over her body, she could use them to great effect, kind of like the solar flare, being able to blind her opponents and get in even more jabs when the times are getting rough. Now when it comes to flying in this particular story, we would like to try and limit it as much as possible. This all means that we can just rely on good old-fashioned fighting and martial arts rather than just beam struggles all of the time. That's what the Tournament of Power intended to do, so we wouldn't rely on flying and we could rely on martial arts and agility like in the good old days of Dragon Ball. But that kind of thing got forgotten when the stadium was destroyed, even though it was not supposed to be destroyed. And then of course Zeno forgot about the rules because hey, he didn't care about the rules. But still, this is Dragon Ball. We can't eschew key attacks and beam struggles all the time. We gotta have it in there somewhere, it's part of the DNA. And that's where Zaidan's second-in-command Styro comes in. As we mentioned in previous parts of this Build a Baddie series, Styro's attacks are mainly based around sound. Each of his general attacks would cause a lot of damage based on the sound wave that it would generate as well, so essentially he's getting 2 hits in for the price of 1. You get the physical attack, and then you get the blast wave after it. Also, as we described in the plot, Styro would be the one, instead of trying to destroy the power source thereafter, embracing it, and therefore it would enhance his powers even more. He would then be able to manipulate all kinds of energy around him, so in a way, it would mean that he could manipulate the Saiyans' ki, controlling their movements or something like that, negating their attacks. Imagine him being able to lock onto the frequency of Super Saiyan Blue, for example, and just like go, no. And then Goku and Vegeta can't use it. It would render most of the Saiyans' power practically useless, and they would have to rely on their general base form, as well as other kinds of attacks that rely on punching people. You know how Saiyans like to scream all of the time? Well, maybe Styro could use that to his advantage. All the sound waves that are generated could be absorbed by Styro, and then just pushed back at Goku and Vegeta. So ironically, the Saiyans' own yelling would actually hurt them even more. They'd have to be really quiet. Last but not least, we have Lord Zaidan, and this is a guy who doesn't like to rely on fighting. He is a much more efficient character, kind of like what Jiren was. He gets his minions to do the dirty work for him, but when it actually comes to it and he has to get involved, he will get stuck in. His fighting style will be similar to Muay Thai or kickboxing. He would also have the ability to stop people from flying in the first place, hence why the general rule of fighting wouldn't be around in this arc. He would go straight for the takedown with punches and kicks. And Zaidan, in terms of his tenacity, he's the kind of character that will just not stop. It's like a kid finding a piñata. They will go for that piñata until it spews out the candy, relentlessly. Sometimes he would resort to telekinesis, being able to hurl objects around in the battlefield, trying to confuse his opponents and maybe get an extra hit on them. He wants to be in control of not just the fight, but the world around them, using the scenery to his advantage and actually as another accessory. So yeah, just a lot of varied attacks there from our crew, and that's what we got for you today. So what do you guys think? Did you guys like our little thought experiment there? What kind of ideas would you like to bring to Dragon Ball's table? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!